Airing first on Asheville FM, WSFM LP 103.3 FM, this is The Final Straw, a weekly anarchist, anti-authoritarian radio show broadcasting from occupied Saligi land in southern Appalachia. We bring you voices and perspectives from people, projects, and struggles around the world engaging in the long project toward liberation. You can email us with questions or suggestions at thefinalstrawradio@riseup.net or at protonmail.com, or send us letters at P.O. Box 6004, Asheville, North Carolina 28816. This show is brought to you by Firestorm Books and Coffee. Located at 610 Haywood Road, Firestorm is a locally owned co-op specializing in offbeat, underground, and independent literature. You can find a sample of Firestorm's books and zines, plus a full calendar of events at their website, firestorm.coop.
Frío por la madrugada, la bruma del bosque, el mejor pasamontañas, disparan tierra recuperada. Golpea el estado y golpea con su palacio. Ojalá que llueva mañana, que llueva benzina en la ciudad, que toda la rabia sembrada se convierta en chispas de libertad. Y ojalá que llueva benzina en la ciudad y cae en la tierra mojada. La sangre de los peñi, nadie puede hacer nada. Llueve desde el triste cielo, ácido infértil de codicia y de dinero. Peñi, se está secando el cerro, la codicia del hombre está secando al mundo entero. Peñi, aquí no va a quedar nada. Traiga ese huechue que hay que organizar la rabia. Y ojalá que llueva mañana, que llueva benzina en la ciudad, que toda la rabia sembrada se convierta en chispas de libertad. Y ojalá que llueva benzina en la ciudad.
This week I had the chance to interview someone, a 20-year-old anarchist from the territory of so-called Chile, about the uprisings which have been occurring there. The protests began on Monday, October 14th in Chile's capital, Santiago, as a coordinated fare evasion campaign by high school students, which led to spontaneous takeovers of the city's main transit stations and open confrontations with the Chilean police. While the reason for these protests was a fare hike for public transportation by the government and the transit companies, this was only the tipping point in a much larger and diffuse situation of economic precarity. We will post a great infographic on our blog about all that is tied up in the situation, but in short, education and healthcare are private and so are very expensive. Jobs pay very little, $400 a month on average, and it is the only country in the world where water is privatized. According to Food and Water Watch, having a privatized water system increases the yearly cost of water by 59%, or over twice the amount as public water, and also severely cuts the options for jobs and services and maintenance and so forth. Many of the systems that people in Chile are forced to live under, such as the current mechanisms of the state of emergency and the pension system, were created under the Pinochet dictatorship and have not been updated to reflect the so-called democratic rule. So our guest outlines these situations and also speaks about the violence that the protesters are facing from the police and from the state. They also speak on the relationship of this current violence to the violences that Indigenous Mapuche people have been facing from the Chilean state all along. According to the Wikipedia article on the 2019 Chilean protests, as of yesterday, October 26th, quote, 19 people have died, nearly 2,500 have been injured, and 2,840 have been arrested. Human rights organizations have received several reports of violations conducted against protesters, including torture, end quote. Our guest outlines the peaceful nature at the outset of these protests, which were quickly escalated by hyper-repressive tactics on the part of the police, and says that these actions are making it clear that the democracy, which was fought for by the generations above them, is a fake system. And many, many, many more topics. Here is an announcement, though, on behalf of the IDOC Watch. IDOC Watch, or Indiana Department of Correction Watch, is an organization in Indiana composed of people directly affected by the prison system and prison abolitionists, that is, organizing to expose and stop the widespread abuses in the Indiana prison system with the long-term objective of dismantling the prison system. Check out their website if you're interested at idocwatch.org. They will be having an event which is going to be a panel discussion on the base building IDOC Watch is doing in prisons and communities affected by incarceration, prisoner struggles and counterinsurgency in Indiana, and the effects of the prison industrial complex on individuals, families, and communities. Featuring Zolo Agona Azania, former Black Liberation Army activist and long-term New African political prisoner from Gary, Indiana, who beat 2 death sentences after being falsely accused and convicted of murdering a Gary police officer during a bank robbery. Zolo was released from prison in 2017 after serving over 35 years. He is currently working to establish re-entry housing for people being released from prison in Gary through the Gary Alliance for the Empowerment of the Formerly Incarcerated. And also featuring ST, a mother and grandmother from Gary who organizes with IDOC Watch and currently has a son incarcerated at Indiana State Prison, a maximum security facility in Michigan City, Indiana. And an organizer with Focus Initiatives Ltd., an abolitionist re-entry project in Indianapolis, Indiana. More about them can be found at focusreentry.com. The location of this event is going to be 1845 Sheridan Road, Evanston, Illinois, 60208, 217 Fisk Hall. And it's going to be taking place on Tuesday, October 29th, 2019, from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Central Time.
The final straw reached out through various channels to anarchists working and fighting in Rojava, northern Syria. We got this response from an anti-authoritarian combatant from Canada currently in Rojava. The 2 sections sound a bit disjointed because of the passage of time and the circumstances between the sendings. So I asked the comrade first off, can you tell us about the current situation that you're experiencing with the Turkish and Turkish Free Syrian Army threat of invasion and what the Russian military and Syrian Arab army that just brokered the so-called ceasefire with Turkey appear to be doing? And the response was the following, quote, I want to say that it's an analysis here on the ground and shared by U.S. Special Forces here on the ground, that this whole thing with Russia and Syria is a fucking fraud. It's a fucking sham. Villages here are getting steamrolled by Turkish infantry. Armored vehicles, tanks, joint strikes with artillery. The SAA is literally shooting into fields, deliberately missing targets. I don't know where the fuck the Russians are. We've seen their vehicles here, but they're not deploying to slow the Turkish assault. It's bullshit. My analysis and that of people on the ground is that this is a backroom deal with Erdogan for the regime to reacquire this territory. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I fucking hope that I'm wrong. But that's how it looks at this front, and it's really scary. The front itself is 10 kilometers from Til Tamir, and right now it looks like there's nothing between that front and this hospital that I'm guarding. The situation is bad, and I think it might get worse. I don't know if the internet goes down, but if the attack comes to Til Tamir and I'm not able to respond or send a message, just remember that this is a fraud, a sham, more than we thought. Not to be breathless or panicky, but I wanted to share that with you. Unquote. Following this, I got the response to a question of how folks abroad should think about their solidarity that they offer to comrades that they share affinity with in Rojava. The Canadian anarchist had this to say. I think that one of the first things that friends back in Canada, Turtle Island, and all over the West that might be hearing this can do to support Rojava is to fully understand approaches here and not just draw abstract inspiration from it, but to act to implement some of the principles that they find inspiring from here into their own organizing at home and to create revolutionary situations everywhere but Rojava. Because, of course, if this starts and ends here, then in many ways it would be a dead end, and for people all over the world. And that would be the greatest tragedy, for all this to exist in a vacuum. We need for comrades to analyze what their own organizing looks like beyond Rojava solidarity actions. I will say that words can't express how lonely being under siege can feel sometimes, when it's hard to even communicate with people 5 kilometers down the road. Following this and understanding that currently people are really drawing a lot of inspiration from the city that one is in and from the events that one is participating in is quite humbling and beautiful. I think that some people draw direct connections between the violence that they face from the police in the West during Rojava solidarity actions and the violence that we face from the fascist invasion. I know there's some analysis that came from some people at an action in Richmond, Virginia in the US. That means a lot. It has been quite a beautiful thing to see the things that people have put together back home. Sometimes I get the internet for a little while, and we get to see that, and it's extraordinarily beautiful to see how many people are talking about these things and carrying them on. But it's also this sort of troubling thing when we can see these large actions and also wonder what kind of impact they're having. And I think the tendency in the West is to see a problem and make a protest about it, thinking, yeah, let's get as many people as we can and make some great signs and post about it online. And this is the concept of solidarity. And I don't want to sound pessimistic or put any of it down, because it really is beautiful to see people mobilize around this. But I would challenge people to formulate their approach in relation to the desired outcome. I think that we need to be approaching solidarity in a very different way. And we need to be very attached to outcomes. And we need to think, what needs to happen? And how do we make that happen? Comrades in the West, I would encourage you to make these actions, mobilize people, get people talking about it. But also, people need to be taking action in ways that have a real impact on creating the solutions that we need. And so, I wish people would be thinking more in that framework. At the end of the day, people should realize that their solidarity actions are just that, and that no policy is shifting here, and bombs are not falling because of anarchists taking the streets in the numbers that they're taking the streets in the West. I don't mean to be pessimistic, I'm just being real. And I think if people are looking to make real change and make it quickly, to make people stop losing their lives, they need to consider their tactics very carefully. They need to reflect, as always, on the phrase that solidarity means attack, and to determine what that means to them, and act accordingly. So, Captain.
But first, before this interview, here are some words from anarchist prisoner Sean Swain.
What you say, what you say, what you say, what? Like a
Last week I was watching the news, the corporate mainstream media variety. One of the stories went like this. A guy noticed his neighbor's door was open. It was dark out. He was concerned about his neighbor's welfare, and he didn't know what to do. So he called the police and asked them to send a patrolman to do a welfare check on his neighbor. The cop came. He didn't walk up to the front door and knock on it. He didn't ring the doorbell. He didn't announce police. And he didn't call out to the occupants of the home to see if they were okay. Instead, the officer crept around in the yard like a creep and got by one of the windows. When a woman, the home's owner, heard the officer and approached the window, the officer didn't announce who he was. He didn't yell police. Instead, he screamed to the woman in the house, who couldn't even see him because the lights were on and it was dark outside. He screamed at her to show him her hands, and then he shot her dead. By the body cam footage, he gave her 0.6 of a second to comply before shooting her dead. Afterward, the officer claimed he was afraid. Now, there's a lot to unpack here, and then I'm going to ask for your help so that we can perhaps, together, prevent another shooting like this one. So, as to the unpacking. The woman lived there. According to news sources, she was playing video games with her nephew and left the door open by accident. She had no way to know that the police officer was there. The officer didn't announce. She couldn't see him in the dark outside, and she possibly didn't even hear his command to show her hands, or even know who was giving it. She certainly never had a chance to comply with it before Quick Draw shot her dead. And to reiterate, this all came about from a call requesting a simple welfare check. A welfare check. You know, a knock on a door and an announcement of, "Police, is everyone okay in there?" So the cop was dispatched to make sure the homeowner was okay, not to make sure she wasn't. We're talking about a whole string of perfectly unjustifiable events, a totally irrational and disturbing series of decisions by a complete jackwagon wearing a badge and waving around a gun. And it ended with an innocent homeowner dead, for no good reason at all. To the officer's claim that he was afraid, the officer was trained for law enforcement. He had a gun, and this wasn't his first rodeo. And just so you know, cops rarely ever die on the job. It's a relatively safe profession. Meat packers have a much higher mortality rate. So do electricians. Hell, school teachers experience more death and injury on the job than police do. So all things being equal, we really have much better reasons to hand pistols to meat packers and teachers than handing them to cops. But in this situation, the fear justification is just ridiculous. Everybody knows that it's impossible to see outside in the dark when you've got the lights on. So there's no reason this officer had to be afraid of a woman in her own home who couldn't even see him. What danger does an unarmed homeowner in her own home pose to an armed police officer in the bushes when she can't see him? Exactly. So if this officer was afraid, perhaps he's in the wrong profession. Perhaps he should have quit the force and become a meat packer, or an electrician, or a teacher. Oh wait, all of those jobs would have been way too dangerous. Maybe he could have felt safe as a quality control inspector at a pillow factory or something. You know, working with things that are soft and fluffy and non-aggressive. That way, if he had a brain fart and shot the place up, all those pillows could absorb the bullets. This is just my opinion, but part of the problem here is that cops, no matter how unjustified their conduct, they know they can simply invoke fear and get a free pass just like all the other cops before them. And another part of the problem is that nobody normal would ever go into law enforcement. It takes a particularly sick and twisted stick to want to put on a badge and chase around people and put cuffs on them and deprive them of freedom. The social sciences show, time and again, that law enforcement produces the same psychological profiles as the offenders they most often arrest. Want to be a cop? You're probably an asshole. And all you got to do to earn a badge and a gun is to pass a civil service test and the standard in-house training. That means if you can drink 3 six-packs without throwing up, you can join the force. The slogan, "to protect and to serve," should be replaced with the slogan, "chug, chug, chug." But reasonably, everyone should know this. Cops are stupid, crazy, lying, racist jerks with guns. We know this. There's no question. Cops have killed more innocent people than hijackers flying planes into buildings. You're probably safer with a jihadist wielding a box cutter and kicking in the door to the pilot's cabin on the plane you're on than you are with a cop kicking in your door. And so we get to the interactive portion of this rant. If you have a decent sound system, I need you to turn up the volume and direct your speakers out your windows. Maybe use a megaphone. It's not enough to reach final straw, listeners. Everyone in the world needs to hear what I'm about to say. Here's my message. Don't call the cops. Whatever's happening, whatever the situation, it will never be improved by the arrival of police. Don't call the cops. Is there danger? Get with others to address it. An annoyance? Confront the source. Work it out. But whatever you do, don't call the cops. Only bad things happen when you dial 911 and jackwagons with badges and guns show up. Use your imagination. Use personal initiative. Figure out solutions to whatever problems you face. But whatever you do, don't call the cops. One last time, don't call the cops. This is anarchist prisoner Sean Swain, in exile from Ohio at Buckingham Correctional in Dillwyn, Virginia. If you're listening, you are the resistance. Oh, and don't call the cops.
You can write to Sean Swain at his latest address at Sean Swain, number 2015638, Buckingham Correctional, P.O. Box 430, Dillwyn, Virginia, 23936. You can find his past writings, recordings of his audio segments, and updates on his case at seanswain.org, or now follow him on Twitter at @SwainRocks.
So, hello, would you introduce yourself if you would like to?
Okay. Well, I'm someone. I'm 20. And I born and grew up in the territory that they know called Chile, from the neighborhood of capital city. And I hate the police. this is important too.
I also hate the police. So we are here to talk about some recent events occurring in Chile, or the territory so-called Chile. Would you describe what is going on right now?
Currently, Chile is in a state of emergency, which, according to the current constitution, can last a minimum of 15 days if they wanna, This is a measure taken by the president to respond to the mostly peaceful protests that occur happening for a few consecutive days, exactly 2 days. This means that the military and all kind of national police is on the street, killing people, beating, hitting, kidnapping people, repressing with arms and bullets the population that protests against the current government for all the injustice and saqueos of the popular sector and the territory. And what started in the capital city now is a national protest. And in the other side, the people is so stand up now. They make a lot of noise, and they're still making a lot of noise with spoons and pots and wherever. The people stop all the public transporting or stop the country, and they are still protests, and even the violence, A lot of people is helping each other, to heal the damage, and sharing the press about the police for all the internet or wherever, and put new plasmas in the fire, turn off the TV. This is the special part. The people saying to the famous people in the TV shows, in their face, that they don't believe that they, insult the president and police with so spicy shit, really, and too much graffiti and creative expressions. The people is in dressing scenes now. They are not in the houses, very afraid. They are in the street.
Would you talk about how these actions began?
The protest began without leaders. It only broke out in different neighborhoods and sectors of Santiago. The same time, it wasn't a central protest. They announced the rise in the passage of subway of Santiago, a private company in which the state and banks has participation, and then about the rise in the electricity. So all starts again with the student organization that must avoid paying to subway at different stations in the city. Then they went in a big group to jump the turnstiles, protest again the rise in the ticket and through the stations so that people who wanted no pay would do not do. Many people use this transport to get to their job. Some people use bus, some people use boat. It is the most expensive highway in Latin America where people travel really overcrowded at pick-up time. So it was a lot of people who joined the protest and stopped the routes. As always, the government sent the police to repress. But this time the people were really unworthy. They were protesting in a peaceful and a fair manner because prices are absolutely expensive, salaries are so low, politic people steal everything, and also beat us, stop and throw steel bombs and inside the trains and shit, special forces attack people who manifest with a pot and a spoon, and they then throw them away. It's like they were just making noise, but the police, of course, and only the machines to pay were found broken. Not the trains or the station. Nobody attacked the workers. So the police by the state began to repress the protest with more force. There was more confrontations. The chaos began to go up for last Friday, in 2 days, barricadas and paralysis of the complete lines. More than 40 subway stations burned. One cooperative built so strangely burned, stopping the social networks of abuse and repression, lies in the media and Europe dating and detain people. But much of this is weird. Of course, people also destroyed and burned things, and that there in Santiago, their youth is really rebel. But in this time, I think there is too much. It's too much about that. The people know that, But my way, I support the looting last recovery, Because their action as self-defense.
Definitely. And I was reading that initially it was students and young people who were, hopping the turnstiles in protest of the fare hike. Is that true?
Yeah, of course. I told you, all start with the student organization. They are fighting for a lot of time in different parts, not just the transport. And now they organize the first protest and just then blow up.
So you talked a little bit about the police and about the kinds of shit that police is doing to the protesters, but could you talk a little bit more about that for people who aren't so familiar?
That is so bad now, After this start with 2 days of protest, Sebastián Piñera, the president, decreed the state of emergency, before 2 days. And in the capital and 5 more regions. By Saturday, there were already many regions out to protest. Piñera put in a charge a son of a military man who delivered detained to torture center under dictatorship. Take the police investigate police, air, and military into the street, implement a curfew. 6 days later, like now, 9,000 officers are confirmed hunting. 17 dead persons, 88 gunshot person, 22 women sexually abused, grave or with bad things like if you don't want to die, you need to do this by the military, More than 1,000 injured, more than 10 at risk, more than 2,000 arrest people. And these numbers are not static. That may be wrong, since there are people who nobody knows about that person. So in this situation, the family where the worst can be expected, But children, grandparents, women, men, wherever is doesn't matter for the police, Hundreds of videos of people hurt by the bullet pellets, kidnapping in a private car, shot in houses, violations, excessive use of gas. A story of the detained people who were forced to undress and wet them naked in the barracks and then hit them on the ground, even when some of them are underage. So torture, violation of human rights, and dictatorship is what the people of Chile are living today. Like terror, violence, abuse, genocide. And it's too much. To all this, the television does not show the extermination and only manipulate the information and videos to make terror and separation between the popular sector, making fun of suffering, really bad things. These bastards, they don't care if it's daytime, if they kill few hours, don't matter. They just shooting, killing and killing anyone who cross the street, marching through the city with weapons, posing to the cameras. They are putting cocaine in the streets, burning supermarket buses, robbing fairs in town, burning underground stations, burning banks, creating assemblies. It's all fake. A lot of things are fake, and the people know because they take pictures and they recording with their own phones, and a lot of cops and militaries are doing this stuff. It's hard.
That is hard.
People have born and hung up, but we know who they were. We know they were killed. The group bodies in the streets. They're using tanks and horses, even horses, and damage the animals that live on the street. It's not just humans too. Despite all these misery, people are still standing, and no more furious than ever because it's too much. It's still too much.
Absolutely. And like what you said about the media not really representing this or representing it in a bad way, I think is very true. And like they're killing people, they're raping people, they're just, it's like a military occupation, I think. So what I want to ask you is, so those who are not so familiar with these events may have heard that these protests are the result of like raising the fare for public transportation, but this is just the tip of the iceberg of what is actually going on. What are the conditions that led to these uprisings?
Yeah, you're right. It's an iceberg. This is my perspective, I talk for me and just for me. So in my perspective, it all starts with the resistance of the Mapuche people who have been fighting for 500,000 years. Initially with the Europeans, with the Europa people than with the Chilean state. From left or for right, the state has repressed Mapu and killed its people to see the land, to sell the land, place where native people live and protect forest, water, and put industries, hydroelectric, dams that kill the ecosystem and lead to the Mapuche or non-Mapuches, people without results. That is everything that is within your reach to private businessmen who are from other countries or their families. For me, this is the beginning. The state doesn't recognize its autonomy as an original people. They don't care about they continue to exist or about their culture. On the contrary, he tries to exterminate them, just like the Segnan people makes illegal searches, shoots, impress, like all the happenings now, the state always do with Mapuche people. For me, that is the oldest battle that still doesn't have a dignified answer. Battle that not everyone supports, not everyone Chilean support because maybe he doesn't understand or he doesn't care, But the entire population is affected now by living in the only country where water is private, having a system of education and private health super expensive, a pension system created in dictatorship that steal all your money, dead people in the hospital for being poor, more than 1 million children missing from tsunami centers, which are basically prisons for them, zones or areas of sacrifice. The problem in Quintero, a pollution region where children cannot go to school because they breathe the toxics, and they are sick now. Multiple collisions of pharmacy, diapers, toilet papers, they are punished. Military murders in dictatorship unpunished. Millions of dollars stolen by the police institution and political person unpunished or in the luxury prisons. The gasoline is so expensive. Very low salaries for such an expensive life where you have to borrow for life to have a house or pay the rent, while the small sector of rich people earns more than 30 times that someone who earns the minimum salary, While the deputies, congressmen and congresswomen and senators make fun of people, like saying things like you have to get up early to pay less, or you need safe water. It's not my business if you need pay. So, but when people work 45 hours a week, where they own everything, they have everything, where there are still political debts, compass, anarchy people in prison, kidnapped, where leaders in defense of the environment for the nature appear dead. They still do not approve of abortion, cases of women, of lesbian woman, rape, murder, where there is still no justice, Aula Segura, Cosiplan, and the currently PPP-11, free trade agreements that want to drill the mountain range, sell the seeds, increase prices of medicine, control of navigation, internet, ban trade unions in their jobs, abysmal inequality, and much more. Basically, Chile is, for me, is the US USA experiment, where neoliberalism is born, where they prove the doctrine of shock, and works. So it is not just the ticket or the rise of the ticket. It's a lot of things.
Will you talk about how is it like to be an anarchist in Chile?
Yeah. I call napkin. It's like they steal us, and a lot of pampas, they are in prison for things that the state don't have the proof, but they just put in jail, and they just start the process in the judge and just go to jail and don't have options, because the state call this person terrorist, you know. But I think the state is the really terrorist. Then this person needs fight inside to the jail too, because they have special bad things about the cops. But for lucky, I think that a lot of people make solidarity with them and support them.
This is the Final Straw radio show, broadcasting first out of occupied Saligi land in southern Appalachia. I'm your host, William. We are talking to a Chilean anarchist about the uprisings that are currently going on in Chile and some of the historical context it's important to keep in mind when discussing this. So there is currently a state of emergency in Chile, like you mentioned before. And I understand that the powers were passed down from the Pinochet dictatorship. What do these measures mean for the people?
Yeah. The Constitution and the AFP create for the currently the other president, senators, diputados, mayors, militaries, drugs in the street, and various a couple famous in the TV. They are son and they are thinking about the dictatorship. In my case, in my life, my mom was in a college when she fight for the democracy. She grew up in the dictatorship. So I'm 20, you can imagine that it's a lot of people that live the dictatorship. So a lot of people fight for their own life, or for the democracy, fight for the country, see they people die or suffer or was tortured, and now they are alive and they are so bad, 17 years about really bad memories. Even worse, in Chile, we don't have justice for thousands of persons. A lot of families don't have justice for person that in the dictatorship was missing, they are just killed. So a lot of families now they are looking for, or they still have the damage, the fucking sensation in the heart that don't know what happened with this person or this son or wherever. So the military is again in the street. It's a big and strong phrase about the state. It shows in the face of the people that the democracy is fake, and that they don't care the people. A lot of people say when the young people go to protest in the combative memory days, hey, you're so young, you don't leave the dictatorship, why you do that? But now the things change, now the 1, 2, maybe 3 generations new they know it. Now they know it, why is the dictatorship, what happened, that the people die, disappear. But now the people don't have too much fear in the past. So I think for the Chilean people it's so strong and emotional. And for that they are so angry. it's not just play. It's not wherever protest is. The military on the streets is a strong declaration. Like the president said that we are in the war. We are at war. He said that. So that is the whole truth. Like either you are from the exploited people or from the exploited.
Yeah.
That is all.
Did he mean that he was at war with his own people?
Yeah, he said that. Like we are in a war.
That is really
Yeah.
fucking strong language coming from a president.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really serious.
So it's awesome that even when all the memories, the people still in the street fighting.
Mm-hmm. It takes a lot of bravery and a lot of strength to do that. And I'm wondering if you have any ideas about how can people help support comrades in Chile. Are there things you would ask of anybody listening to this show right now?
I think that what is needed now is to break the walls of disinformation, misinformation. Investigate and share true information, but look for in the not official networks, the networks that the people use, not in the TV. Talk about this issue where you can, in order to put in stress the political position, If someone is there and is interested, I think that any gesture of solidarity that is both from your individuality or with your friends is welcome. The Chilean people are warm and have values people from other countries who send support through the internet, using hashtags and stuff. If you believe in magic, send spells against the police. If you draw, make a proper, if you know someone, make networks for talk. I don't know, if you have more motivation, you can go to the consulate if you are close, do something, or just a picture, you can just write something in a paper, take a photo, and I think that they are really gonna say thanks for that.
As an anarchist yourself, what do you hope to see? Like, what do you hope will be some sort of next steps?
Personally, for me the problem is the state, I told you, for me the state is terrorism, a tool of capitalist system. So that he has never pretended to have a decent government for the people. So I will not demand change to who the problem is, but I support the Chilean people and they angry, and I think it is not time to accelerate, because people are looking to solve things with what they have at hand, So now the main thing, the more important thing is throw up the president of the post. Throw up, along with him, all his puppets, fascists and murderers. It is urgent to change the constitution, create in dictatorship, and reduce the money used in military forces. That is important to change. I really have hopes about that. Like the people gonna make that. I hope that anarchist ideas spread. Like this is the moment for that. We know that we need to do that. Make people grow up, organize their anger against the enemy. I really hope that don't separate. Even if we are all very different from each other, not all the people feel the same, but don't accept fake solutions. Like, let the carnivals and plastic shit that nobody needs, and let us never forget again, because from now at this point, all the information will be gold. Like 1984 style, I think that is important, really important. Like, not forget all the things that's gonna happen now for this next step, because this is historical, and after a long time, people have come together to see things change. I don't know. I think they are wake up now, and the people need be together, not even when we are different or we think different. We are the same size, you know.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and thank you for talking about that. So, the uprising that's happening in Chile right now is happening also at the same time as a bunch of other ones around the world, like in Haiti, in Lebanon, and beyond from Rojava. Do you have any words for anyone participating in any of these various uprisings worldwide?
Oh yeah, this is the strong one. Yeah, of course, like the struggle and resistance for dignity, I think is the most beautiful thing that people can do in this situation. So from anonymity, from anon, I send Neguen and help to every person being who is fighting for his life in a better world. You know, no, not for just pay, it's for more, for opening the cage and fighting the dead. You know, this is like warrior. The warrior force has no borders or limits. So it's protected by, for me, it's protected by the love and fear of nature. So the action against injustice and murders create like liberty ideas, like anarchy ideas. I will tell them with con humildad así de mi corazón that they deserve what they demand, and I will thank them too for their strength and courage. You know, I think now it's very rotten and it's very broke, but the life is beautiful.
Yeah, that's really moving and on point. How can people learn more about what is actually going on in Chile? Like, are there good social media accounts to follow, or things that they can look to?
Yeah, now the people is just using the internet, you know, and a couple of radios in Chile from different regions, and they are the most important right now. Information space. In Instagram, you can find a couple of radios and people that is organized now for share this information. And it's especially in Spanish, but the people can translate or wherever. So basically, use internet and turn off the TV. But I don't know if you wanted the specific ones, like Radio Villa Francia. In Instagram, it's weird thing that in the Instagram you can follow real things, but yeah. Radio de Ciclo de Abril, Radio Villa Francia, Piensa, Piensa Prensa, Piensa Opal. They are a good ones. They have a page in the internet too.
Nice. Is Radio Kuruf doing stuff?
Yeah, Radio Kuruf too. Cool. Put information like right now. So cool. It's good for see things.
So, comrade, those are all the questions that I have. Is there anything that we missed that you want to talk about as part of this interview, or any final words you'd leave listeners with?
Of course, that I can speak something for close. Like, I'm really glad for the invitation. So
No, that was all that I had. I think that it'll be really good for people to hear your words and to hear the information that you presented. And thank you so much for having this talk with me.
I really hope that the people can understand.
Yeah, they will.
And,
Yeah, they definitely
for the
will.
language, but I'm really thankful for the invitation, for the gesture. Solidarity has no borders, and it's really an attack against this fascist and capitalist system that wants to see us compete and kill each other. But this is history of solidarity, and this radio is cool, right? For all the things that do. So thank you for listening to me, and continue to also call, and fighting your until each stuff of this prison society for me that is important, to also call for that. Hasta que todo reviente contra el Estado del Capital. Creo que eso sería. Yeah.
To keep updated on this situation and away from the TVs like our guests suggested, you can follow Radio Curuf, an anarchist radio station in Chile, and read their analysis on the current wave of repression here at radiocuruf.org, and that's RADIOKURRUF. You can also visit our blog at thefinalstrawradio.noblogs.org for a partial list of links and accounts to follow, including some on-the-ground reporting by CrimeThink.
All days happen new things. Like today, I turn off the cell phone and I know other things. So all day is different with a lot of new stuff. So probably today more happens. More things happen. But it's difficult to me too because I'm here, I'm not there living the situation. I don't feel like I feel bad now, of course. I feel angry, but I don't feel that the person is living now. So I talk from my perspective, for my position now, like being here, far away, with my family there, my friends there, but it's not the same. So I try to talk with respect, because I'm not there living the situation, but I know that the people is angry, and I think that that is important to communicate, that the state are killing people and the people are fighting.
Yeah, and it's the hardest thing to, not be where a struggle is happening and it's your home,
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Yeah, and I can go throughout for that this means for me, like I don't feel that, I don't feel proud about my flat and stuff, but of course that the neighborhood that watch me grow up is important,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That all makes a lot of sense.
And the political situation, of course, in all the country, even if you don't know the person, even if you don't live there, the political situation, the faith situation.
Yeah. Again, it's so important that people understand what's going on, and I haven't watched TV in a really long time, but I can only imagine what the shit people are talking about on the fucking television, right? And I think that listening to the people and listening to people who have a relationship to the space and her relationship to the place is also super crucial.
¿Por qué? Yo pregunto a los jóvenes, ¿en qué mierda estamos pensando? Mientras nosotros sentamos cómodos hay sangre que chorrea, caras que lloran y corazones que queman, junto con brazos en el aire y dedos cerrados en un puño, tratando de guardar la libertad que nos queda, peleando para nuestros derechos por la tierra. Adelante, jóvenes, no hay razón para el silencio. Seguimos con el camino que el pasado nos dejó y el futuro necesita una guía y el presente está marcado. No podemos abandonar las voces de hoy o de ayer y el futuro está esperando. Adelante ya, lo que queremos no va a llegar gratis. Tenemos que pagar con nuestras voces, sudor, lágrimas y sangre. Esto es una lucha vieja, pero parece que se durmió. ¿Por qué? Yo te pregunto, ¿por qué?
The music for this episode was, at the beginning, was Llueve by La Trova Punk, and now you are hearing Los Crudos with